like if it's okay to kill somebody for their skin color, and the governing authority says, yeah, that's fine, it wouldn't sit right with me. So I would say that's not fine.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What if a Christian who's a believing Christian goes by the text, they're Puritans and they would go by what the text says. In fact, this text, if I read further on, it goes on to say that anyone who rebels against that authority is actually rebelling against God.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably why I don't believe in this.
Yeah.
There's kind of I don't know if this is what you were alluding to, but I feel like there's something that supersedes this.
A theocracy.
Exactly. What the governments or what the people we put in authority. Like we grant authority to people, but that doesn't mean that the universe or some natural law is granting authority to them. We kind of give them that authority. But I do think that there is somehow some like higher thing, which is just like our rational, how we can rationalize and how we can like reason with whether something is just or good.
Okay.
That is independent from.
But isn't that subjective?
Well,
yes.
It is, isn't it? Because what might be good for you and independent for you might be bondage for someone else and bad for someone else.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, and in that case, there has to be some, again, social contracts where you, at least how I view it, is something that could be good for me that could be very, very bad for somebody else.
Yeah.
I shouldn't do it because essentially I wouldn't want somebody else to be doing it to me. So it's this general social agreement that you have living in a society. That's how I see it.
Unfortunately, that's not the case, is it?
No, it isn't. But it's one of those things where legal authority can say it's illegal to jaywalk, to cross the street. And if there's no cars, I'll do it. And if a police officer sees me and wants to fine me, I would think that's unjust because again, I broke.
You were
the
not
law.
harming anyone.
I broke the law, but I wasn't harming anyone, and I wasn't harming myself, and I made the rational decision that that was okay at that time.
Okay. So as far as you're not harming anyone, you would consider that to be legal or should at least be allowed?
I see very.
Is that the
reason to
principle?
disallow that.
Would that be the principle that you work on, or?
For the most part.
I think that's like at least for me, that's kind of a very neutral. It's not good, morally good or bad. It's just if it's not harming anyone.
Well, it can.
Yourself.
Okay. It can be morally bad depending on, like I said again, the person you're speaking to. For example, there are many people who want to practice, for example, incest. There are people in Europe. I don't know from Canada, but there are people in Europe who want to practice incest. They are saying, look, we are both adults and we both consent and we are not harming anyone. So why are you saying that's against the law? Now that might be immoral to you and me, but for them it's not immoral.
Yeah.
And they are working on the same principle you're working on, which is A, they're not harming anyone, it is consensual, and it is something that basically agrees with that conscience.
There is the risk of harming the child.
Yeah.
What did they use contraception? You see what I mean? They got ways around that because they've thought about this, but they want to legalize it. Now they're going to the parliament and they want to legalize it as something that's a legal paradigm within the law itself. You see, this is what I'm saying. There's a difference between bringing in just a secular understanding of the world, where everything goes as long as you're not harming someone, because that thing can sometimes backfire, and it has done in the past.
I'm curious, in this case where they're using contraception, so there's no risk of a child being born.
Then you're okay with that?
Am I okay with it? Well,
I'm not okay with it.
Morally, are you okay with that?
My main question is, so what is the harm in this case? I'm curious.
No. Their argument is there is no harm, and it is consensual, and it is something that they both, as adults, have the right to do. But your principle is the same, isn't it? That as long as you're not harming anyone, then what's the problem with it? So would you agree in their favor, or would you disagree? Because it's the same principle they're arguing as you.
I didn't know this was a debate here. Just thinking about it now, I haven't had much time. I would say if they're not harming anyone, then let them do it.
Okay. What do you say?
Yeah, I see little reason why it would be ethically wrong for them to do that.
Why do you think majority of the countries have got it as illegal?
Well,
unless it was ethically wrong or morally wrong.
I mean, there's societal. Well, I can only speak for myself. There's some things which we see as taboo, and those taboos have not always been here. They can shift over time. So I would say I mean, just me growing up in the 80s and the 90s, the attitude towards, I'll just say, same-sex marriage or homosexuality was completely different than yours. It was very taboo to even talk about in my hometown. It was very conservative. And so you could say, okay, because I feel somehow icky, because I feel uncomfortable with this topic, does that mean that it's wrong? Or does it mean that I've just been conditioned to think that it's wrong? And so this is, to me, the question is, okay, who is it harming and what is the good and the bad in this on both sides?
So you have no problem whatsoever if someone that you know very, very close and near and dear to you would be sleeping with his mom. You wouldn't have a problem with that.
I would think it would be very socially strange.
Socially strange, yeah.
Very socially strange.
But no issues other than that.
It's similar to if you think about Nazi Germany, where it was legal to persecute Jews.
No, that's different because that is obviously harming someone. So let's not compare apples and pears because that is literally oppression, isn't it? But here, like I said, they're both adults, they both are consenting to it, and they both consider it to be their right to express themselves freely. Just like the same-sex marriage you're saying. Again, the same thing, because before it was a taboo and it was considered immoral and unethical and basically antisocial, so on. But then gradually people got used to it. So you see, when people will get used to their sons sleeping with their mothers or the father sleeping with their daughters, they will become socially acceptable and morally justified somehow.
Well, I think that there's maybe 2 degrees here. There's one which is like our social laws, so we can like, people can somehow embarrass themselves so much that we shun them socially, but that we don't put them in prison. So there's kind of a difference here. Like I recognize that you are having sex with your mother. I don't want any part of that, so I'm just not going to hang out with you. So that's one thing. There's another argument, which is, okay, we think that this is harming society as a whole, and so we need to penalize these people by throwing them into, by punishing them by some like actual concrete means, putting them in jail, fining them, something like this. And so that's, I think, the distinction here.
So which one would you lean towards?
Well, I have a hard time saying, okay, we should throw them in jail, because if they're not harming someone,
okay,
I guess if I don't really want to be around them because I find it uncomfortable, then that's my choice. I would just walk away and say, okay, I don't really want to converse with.
So you see, we have come full circle with us discussing the fact that it's subjective, isn't it? Everything that you see around today is subjective in terms of morality and so on. You see, but don't you think there has to be a higher authority to basically someone who draws the line as to what we should do and should not do, what is morally justified and what is immoral, rather than the society and the times dictate to us?
Higher, depends on what you mean by higher. I do think that we...
Well, I mean God, basically. That's what I'm trying to get to. Because you see, if someone, I don't know if you believe in God. Do you believe in God?
Pretty agnostic towards it.
Okay,
yeah.
but you,
No, not really.
you don't believe in God? Agnostic or atheist?
No, I'm more on the atheist side.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, so maybe this argument actually fits in quite well with your worldview, because it is God, basically no dictating, no theocracy, no theological what do you say, strings being pulled here. This is purely based on what people think about what is morally right, what is something that is accepted in the society, something that people kind of either reject or accept based on their feelings. You see, but the point remains, where does society draw the line, and who has that authority? Because if you're just going to allow the majority to dictate that, and the majority can be wrong, so at the end of the day, based on your worldview, who would you put in charge, or who would you give this authority to draw the line? Because I don't know if the government is always right, and we have seen from the past history that they cannot be always right. Yes?
But I think like our feelings and our intuitions kind of inform our opinions. And
which can be wrong as well.
They can be wrong. But I think still we can have man-made constructs. Like our ethics, maybe I'll give a concrete example. So like our hospitals.
Yeah.
We want them to be admitting, we want them to admit everyone fairly. So if my friend here, he gets injured, and I say, okay, I take him to the hospital and I say, okay, he's seriously injured, I want him to have priority over everyone else. So we say, okay, it's clearly wrong. Like the system needs to be built such that we cater to everyone equally. Just because like he's the most important person to me that doesn't mean that he should get treatment first. So we need to have the system in place, kind of like
let me put a spanner in that.
Institution. I'll just say our institution says, okay, we need to treat them fairly, and we can't have favoritism. So even in this like small instance, even though it's like harming me, and if I had my opinion and if I had my choice, I would put him in front of everyone else. I'm okay understanding that, okay, there's a good reason why he's back of the line. And that's how we kind of like create our societies, is based off of these like...
But it's not always that. It's not like the first come, first serve, is it? Like, for example, if there was a child who was profusely bleeding in front of him, and he's not really in that much of a danger, then obviously you'll give the child the priority.
Yes.
Regardless of whether he came at the last or at the beginning. You see what I mean?
The argument is the same.
Yeah. No, the argument is that you give priority based on the circumstance. And then the same goes with whatever happens in our world today. Yes, you do not just say just because somebody out there feels right about a certain situation, you allow them, yes, let's make it legal because this community here thinks it's legal. You do not, maybe you haven't actually looked at the greater harm it does. Yes?
How do we judge this greater harm?
You look at the actual incident, and then you assess based on that. And that would go for everything. Take alcohol, for example. Today alcohol is legal in all the countries, and we have every evidence conceivable to us in the 21st century of the impact and the effect and the dangers of alcoholism. Either whether you're directly impacted by it or you're indirectly impacted by it. There is, but you see, most of the governments today have legalized it, and they get revenue from it. Not only the fact that they have legalized, which I call the poison, a known poison and a known harm, and the same goes with cigarettes. Yes, again. And there are huge lobbies which dictate the laws behind this, which have got control within the government. So this is what I'm saying, you see. Today, we have got many things which we know the dangers of. So even after the dangers have been assessed, nothing's been done about it. In fact, it's been promoted even more. You see what I mean? So that's why, coming back to the question again, don't you think there has to be a higher authority to make us realize and make us acknowledge that this is something that is necessary for human beings and for our survival as a whole, as a community, because we do not see the advantage or disadvantage of an individual or a particular community, but we should look at the community as a whole. You see, this is something, by the way, I'm a Muslim, and as a Muslim, we believe that the laws which have been given to us in terms of what has been forbidden and what has been allowed and permitted, we call that the haram and the halal, the forbidden being the haram and the permissible being the halal. This is something quite necessary in our community, whether today, whether yesterday, or whether tomorrow. It's always, because if we know someone of a higher authority who knows us better than anyone else because he's created us, then he would give us such laws which are good, beneficial for us, plus warn us at the same time, which are harmful to us. So you see, in Islam, it nips it in the bud about the alcohol. Alcohol is not permissible. And the same goes with the cigarettes. Yes, anything that harms your body, you stay away from it. And the same goes with any narcotics, any drugs, or anything that harms your body. The same goes with eating fatty food as well, which is bad for you, you know. So I'm not saying just alcohol, or I'm not just saying drugs. I'm saying anything that harms your body is something that you should stay away from. And this is what we instill within our communities, within our belief, and within our families as well.
Is it something that, so I agree it's things that you should stay away from.
Yeah.
Is it something that should be discouraged, or something that should be illegal and you're punished if you do it?
Well, it depends on the danger. For example, if things like alcohol and drugs, which is a clear danger, then I think that should be not permissible. At least that's my opinion. Because you see, it's not really taking away the rights of the people. Because you see, if somebody demands, for example, if your child demands to drink poison, yes, you will take it away from them, would you not? You wouldn't give him a choice. Do you want it or do you not want it? Because you know clearly that is something harmful for you. You know that is a clear danger for you. So what would you do? You would say that is not permitted for you.
But I think this
period, and that's it.
Quickly in this context, in the child-parent relationship, we kind of assume that children don't have like they aren't responsible enough to make their own decisions.
Are you saying if you had an 18-year-old child, you would give him a poison?
Well,
Seriously?
No, I would say at some point, like we kind of hand the keys to the car over to the people, to our children, and we say, okay, now you're old enough to make your own decisions.
No, that's different. You see, that's apples and oranges. If you know something is clearly dangerous, for example, drugs, and if your child who's now 18 years old wants to do drugs, what would you say to him or her? Would you say it's your choice, you're grown up, you're adult enough, or would you try to discourage them and basically forbid them even? As a good parent, I think any good parent would actually forbid them.
I would highly discourage it, but I wouldn't forbid it. I don't know if it's 18 or 21 or 19, whenever I or somebody feels like somebody becomes an adult, I think that they should have their own decisions over their own life as long as they aren't harming other people.
What if they're harming themselves?
Then that's their choice. So
really? So you as a good parent would give them the choice to harm themselves?
If that's something that they want to do, I would again highly discourage it. I would try to reason with them, but I wouldn't lock them up.
Oh no, I didn't mean locking them up.
No, of course.
What I meant is you stick to your guns and you say it's forbidden for you, and then if they do it, then the onus is on them, isn't it? Because now they are adult, 18 or over. The onus is on them. But you, as a parent, you will stick to your gun. You say no, it's not permitted, it's not allowed. Okay. So you see, this is something which is known danger. Remember, it's not like a car. A car is not really dangerous unless you misuse it. I mean, if you're going to use that, then you wouldn't even go in the kitchen. Because you can misuse many things in the kitchen.
You could say the same for alcohol. I had a beer for lunch. I wouldn't consider that misusing it. I'd consider driving safely with the car.
Hold on. But you see, you drinking a pint of beer or 2 pints of beer.
Half pint.
Yes, whatever it is. You know, this is something that all alcoholics had said at one time in their life, that we will never abuse our intake of alcohol. But then you see that's what happens. People take a little few sips and they start wanting more, because that's the nature of alcohol. It is kind of what do you say? It's basically something that you get addicted to in a way, and you do. It's not that. I mean, look around. Today, the NHS in this country is spending millions just dealing with alcohol-related, either directly or indirectly, cases related to alcohol.
I think that's a fallacy what you said there, where you said people who drink, all people who become alcoholics started off drinking alcohol. You could say all people who killed people were at one time children. That doesn't mean all children are going to become killers.
No, that's the wrong way to put the fallacy. Because I'm not saying all children. Yes, all children have the potential to commit crimes. I'm not saying that. Whether you're a child, you're an adult, you all have potential to commit crimes. However, knowing the effects of alcohol, the dangers of alcohol, and you drink it still, and then you demand more, and then eventually you become an alcoholic, that is clearly a pattern which is consistent in every alcoholic. So every alcoholic at one point started to drink and realized that he wants to drink more or she wants to drink more, and then they eventually went over the limit and they either harm themselves or harm others around them or harm the community as a whole. Eventually there is harm, we know that. Now take the case of the cars. Yes, the cars emit a lot of basically impurities, and I'm totally against that. If they can build cars which emit less impurity, or rather completely eliminate, maybe, I don't know, hydrogen cars or even electric cars in the future, I'm all for that. But you see, this is something which is a necessity. It's not like if you do not drink alcohol, you will not survive in your life. You will. But there are people who do, if they're unable to drive cars, they will be put to great, I don't know, difficulties, for example. Yes, going from place to place, and they are used to that cars, then they will, because there are people who live completely without cars, they have no problem. But then they are used to that. But you see, alcohol is more like an entertainment. It's not really a necessity, is it? So you cannot compare alcohol with driving or alcohol with a kitchen knife. They're two different things. One is just for entertainment. You're losing your health, you're losing your money, obviously, and you are setting a bad example for the people. Obviously, I'm not saying all alcoholics, but sorry, all people who drink, but at least the alcoholics are. And you see the harm. These people, they do not only lose themselves and their money, but they also harm the immediate family and their family's family. It's an impact overall. And that's the reason you see in Islam, it's basically nipped it in the bud where it says alcohol is forbidden And so is gambling, for example. Gambling has the same thing. Yes? People will say, oh, I'm not harming anyone, it's my money, I can do whatever I want with it. But they do not realize the harms of it. The harm to their family, to their community, because of this, I don't know, this habit of theirs of gambling away the money, the excess money they have. You know, there are millions of people out there who cannot even drink, who do not even have water to drink. They have to walk miles for that. Yes? And that's something that's, you see, charity is another thing that is encouraged in Islam, that we try to use any excess money we have and give to charity, not waste it. Yes? But you see, again, in the name of entertainment, you have things like alcohol, things like gambling, yes, which is, to be honest, neither beneficial to the society or the individual himself. It's just for their fun, for that little, I don't know, moment of fun and entertainment. It is something that they have used to.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I think where we disagree is I don't think it should be forbidden.
Okay.
So, but I agree with you that I think, you know, I think any sane person would say charity is obviously better than gambling or drinking alcohol.
No, I'm saying the excess money you have, do not misuse it. And that doesn't mean only gambling. It also implies to things like, I don't know, doing something which is access to your needs. Yes? Doesn't mean that you can't have entertainment in your life, so you can go on holidays. Doesn't mean that. All I'm saying is do not overindulge in things, and that is something that Islam also forbids, to basically misuse the wealth that has been given to you.
And I think this misuse is the problem, because this is the same I see with the alcohol as well. So the example where someone is over-consuming, they're overindulging, and it's harming them and their family and everyone around them, then this is clearly a bad thing. I think there could also be cases where someone, at an occasion, maybe they enjoy that occasion a bit more. They make a connection with a group that they maybe did not make otherwise. So maybe there's some, but it's not always a strictly negative thing.
No, but that can be done without alcohol. What you just said, okay, go to a golf club, go to a tennis club. You can do the same thing.
You can, but let's say I, as a person, and I just say, hey, I really enjoy having a whiskey at the end of the day. It makes me feel good.
But that's what I'm saying. It's just entertainment value, isn't it?
But if it is,
but you do realize that even you having that whiskey is harmful to you, even if it's a small quantity.
It's what? Sorry.
Small quantity does add up gradually. It does. So it's bad for your liver eventually. Why would you want to harm yourself? That's all I'm saying. I know you're saying you want to forbid it, even if it's a known danger to your child. Yes, because to me it really doesn't make sense. If you know something which is a known danger, you would definitely forbid it.
So I would say it's the same. So we always calculate these risks, you know, internally. Maybe it's a different example. I decide I really, really want to go skydiving. It's super exhilarating to me, and then I hurl myself out of a plane. I know that there's a possibility that my parachute won't open and that I will plummet to my death. But I'm weighing that against the thrill that I'm going to be getting. And so I look at this on balance and I say, okay, I'm going to go skydiving. The risk is so small that even if I die, so you could say it's the same thing. So I have this glass of whiskey. It doesn't mean I'm an alcoholic. It just means that I'm going to enjoy it in this moment.
No, I'm not saying you're an alcoholic. All I'm saying is that you do realize that you
could harm my liver.
It could. Well, it definitely does. This is something that we have got enough scientific information now that it does harm your liver. It's not like an if or a but or a could or should. This is something which is proven, and this is something we are not going to even debate about. But you see that example of you skydiving. At the end of the day, that is a thrill, and it is a risk at the same time. Yes, but this is something that you cannot compare with alcohol, which you do more than the skydiving. You might do skydiving once in your life. All right, once in your life. It can be the last time in your life, or it could be something which you enjoy as a sport, and then you might want to do more often. But you see, you are putting your life in danger in the sense that you're seeking this as a risk, not something to do with your health per se, but as a risk of your life that you either make it or you end it all. And this is a risk that's different, isn't it? But you consider that as a sport, as an entertainment as well. But at the same time, it's not something that you come and do every evening, or you do socially as, I don't know, every weekend or something. Most people do it like once in a lifetime. Some people see it as a sport. So I don't think it's a fair comparison between alcoholism, because today you see alcoholism is not something done by a few people in the community, like only a few people would go skydiving, but this is something which is, I would say, at least in this community, majority of the people, they do it. Okay? And look at the harm it's done. A harm to their families, to their friends, to drink driving, for example. They spend millions every year to basically avoid people going on this binge drinking and drink driving after that. Yes, and there's millions spent on advertisement. Why? Because they know that once you have consumed alcohol, yes, you are unable to think rationally and think and make decisions, split decisions, which is required when you're driving.
I think we need to make the distinction between alcoholism, which again we agree is I think we're all on the same page there that it's bad, and having alcohol, so having a beer, where you think it should be forbidden and then I think it shouldn't be, and having that debate. And then the question, the interesting question is really, does making it forbidden make less or more people have it? And then the question I could ask you is, if what's a really bad drug? What's heroin, for example? If heroin were legal, would you do it?
Would I do it?
Yeah.
After what I told you.
No. That's the point. So.
Would you do it?
No.
Why not?
Huh? Because I wouldn't want to harm myself.
But you already are harming yourself when you drink alcohol.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to harm
Maybe
myself.
not to that degree.
Exactly.
Yes?
Exactly.
So it's the degree you're worried about.
There's a gradient there for sure. And the thing is.
By the way, do you have children?
No.
No wonder you said you want to forbid them. Trust me, when you do have children,
you're right. I might.
You might turn into a dad who will say no drugs, no alcohol. That's it.
So the thing is if it were legal, and I took a poll here of people from all different religions, religious, not religious. Most people would say, oh no, I wouldn't do it, even if it was legal. So is it? My argument would be there's a higher degree of common sense that can be used, similar to that of what's told in the Quran or different religious books. That one doesn't necessarily need that to say that is right or wrong. So for instance, for alcohol, it's a choice that you would make because of these good arguments that you said it harms the body, and I want to make the choice that it's not going to harm the body. You don't necessarily need, if the Quran said it's okay to drink, you would probably still say, you wouldn't be like, okay, I'm going to start drinking. You'd be like, no, I think my view is it harms the body.
Yeah.
And therefore I wouldn't do it.
You're right. It is common sense. Yeah. Unfortunately, common sense isn't very common, and that's the reason you see the NHS basically to its limit every Saturday, Friday night, and Saturday night.
The which?
The NHS, which is the National Health Service here in this country.
Okay.
Yes, you see it to its limit. You see ambulances going around the country, I would say. Yes, this is what I'm saying. So on Friday night, on Saturday night, these basically, I mean, they might be very respected people in their communities. They might be professors, they might be teachers, they might be judges. Yes, but then you find them drunk in a bar. Some of them basically puking on the roads.
Yeah.
Same people who said that we wouldn't overindulge. I wouldn't call them alcoholics because they said they do it because they're with friends and it's a social thing and they do it. So these very people who are respected in the society, trust me, if their students or the staff see them in that condition on a Friday night or Saturday night, you tell me what would they say? Would they have the same respect for them?
Probably not.
Absolutely. So it is not something that you think that common sense prevails. No.
Yeah.
This is something, like I said, alcohol in its nature, it kind of intoxicates you to a level where you are no longer now in control. Yeah. The alcohol is in control now. Yeah. And this is what happens. You start overindulging. You do. You tell yourself like 10 times you want to do it, and you do it. And the same applies to many other things. Like, for example, some people, they are womanizers. They know that it will harm the wife if they start having affairs outside marriage. So they might not be able to control themselves. They might have one affair, two affairs, and then they go on. It's not illegal, by the way, in this country to have affairs. Yes. However, if you marry more than one woman, that is illegal. So if you do it legally, i.e., marry them legally, that is forbidden. But if you sleep with hundreds of women, not illegal. Yes. Very good example about the guy who recently died. Yes.
I'm not sure.
The Playboy Empire.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard of it. Yes. You see, he was basically, in a way, praised by every magazine, every newspaper in the world today. Why? This guy is a womanizer. He's been sleeping around taking nude pictures of women. Yes. Is he respecting them? No, it's not. He's doing it for business. Yes.
So the thing about alcohol I find very interesting because I've only been here for a few days, and I've noticed that at night people get very, very drunk. But I've been to other countries where people can drink alcohol and they don't get that drunk. and the rules are less strict. And I've been also where, again, I haven't been able to find a good correlation between how strict the rules are and how much alcohol people drink, or really how much, how things change. I've been to a bunch of different countries, and take Germany for example. I live in Germany right now, and the alcohol regulations are a lot less strict, and people get drunk.
What time do the pubs close there?
6, 7 in the morning.
That's pretty strict. Oh, not open. What time do they close?
6 or 7 in the morning.
No, they close. What time do they close?
6 or 7 in the morning.
All the way till night?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
What time do they open then?
I'm not sure.
They open all night.
Like some are open all the time,
Yes.
and in that sense,
So maybe they don't have this binge drinking.
Right.
What do you say? Kind of environment over there.
Could be, yeah.
Maybe it's different culture, and they might have different.
It could be. So the point there is what I'm saying is I don't think it's necessarily the rules of saying hey, you can't do this, or you need.
So
to
you didn't see people drunk on a night in Berlin, for example, a big city? Because you see, London is a big city.
Yeah.
Maybe if you go to small villages, you won't find people drunk all the time in the pubs and all. Maybe it's different culture in the smaller villages. So maybe it is like you might be right. It might be like peer pressure. It might be a social pressure. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But it's possible. Maybe in Berlin, if you go a big city like that.
I live in Berlin.
Oh,
right
you live
now.
in Berlin? Okay. And you didn't see people.
I have seen people drunk there.
Okay, good.
I would say I've seen a lot more people drunk here than in Berlin.
Okay.
So then the question is, I still think you have a very, very valid point. If you want to stop people from drinking, absolutely, you'll have much fewer drunk people. However, making the rules, a little bit less strict or a little bit more strict, I really don't think. I think it's not a linear thing. It's very strange. So if you say we're going to forbid it absolutely, there's going to be some people who still drink, and they might get in a lot of trouble. But you won't see people drunk on the street. They'll be doing it.
I mean,
you look at Iran, for example, and then you look at here where the rules, or even in Canada where I'm from, there's strict times where things close, and then there's the binge drinking problem, and then in Germany
You have that in Canada?
Yeah, there's binge drinking.
Really?
Problems, yeah.
Interesting. I didn't expect that from Canadians. you guys always as nice people on the social media, having a lovely prime minister.
The media doesn't show that.
I know. Okay.
And then you look at Germany, for instance, where they have very, very liberal rules, and people don't feel the need to overdrink. They have some drinks with some friends, and then they go home.
But you see, my objective here is not to tell you that they should just overnight completely forbid it and stop it. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is that if you weigh the advantage and the disadvantage of drinking alcohol and drugs and gambling, yes, I'm sure the disadvantages always outweigh the advantages.
For drugs and alcohol and gambling,
Yes.
probably gambling, probably some drugs, and I'm not sure about alcohol.
Really? So, can you tell me one good reason why you have to drink?
I enjoy it. I feel
Okay, so
enriched by it.
it's an emotional thing. Any other advantage?
No,
Okay, I can give you lots of disadvantages.
for having one beer at lunch.
Yeah, but it doesn't always go like. Look, I'm not looking at you as an individual. I'm looking at alcoholic problem
Yes.
as a community.
Yeah.
So it's not you as an individual.
Yeah.
And even if, for example, if I look at your entire life and look at you and you were basically the objective of my research, and you were the only subject, then yes, I will find in your life instances where you have abused it.
Yep.
Yes?
Yep.
And this is basically applies to everyone.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm trying to deal with here. I'm saying that if you look throughout the communities, whether it's Germany, whether it's even Iran, whether it's Muslim, non-Muslim countries, yes, where alcohol is permitted, you see greater issues related directly or indirectly to drinking alcohol. And this is something which, if you research objectively, you'll find this and come to the same conclusion. That's what I'm saying. It harms you as an individual, it harms your family as a collective, and a community as a greater collective, and the nation as well. But you see, because the government is getting a lot of revenue from it, yes, they would obviously promote it. They would, regardless of how much harm it does to you, or basically to the country, because I see a lot of money going into treating these alcohol-related issues. Regardless of all that, they would permit it because it does bring in a lot of money. I don't know how much tax.
Just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah.
I need to go. But
Oh, no problem.
appreciate it.
Nice
Do we have to
speaking to
go?
you.
No, you still have time. I told Kathleen I would meet her 15 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago, so I'm going to go meet her. But we'll meet at the venue tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
It's at 7?
It's at 8 o'clock, but I'll be pulling it there.
What is your name, my friend?
Jared.
Jerry?
Yours?
Jerry?
Jerry, yeah.
Jerry, I'm Hashim.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, this is something that, like I said, it's something that we see throughout the countries where it's permitted. And I think the main reason the government would promote it is because they get some sort of revenue from it. It's not. So for me, the government is not concerned about your health or my health as general. Obviously, they are concerned in other sections. I'm not saying they're completely oblivious to our health. Otherwise, they wouldn't have an NHS. They wouldn't have other health programs. But then there are other things where I think they are oblivious in terms of what happens to you as a society. Yes, and this is what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that we need a higher authority to basically draw a line somewhere as to what is permitted and not permitted in a society. That's what I'm saying. By the way, I mean, as a Muslim, I would like to invite you to look into Islam. I don't know if you've had the opportunity.
No, I haven't. I haven't. No.
Would you accept the Quran if I give you as a gift?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. I'll read it on my way back to Berlin.
All right, brilliant. Have you got a copy? Yeah.
Cool. What's your name?
Hashim.
Hashim. Mike.
Mike, nice meeting you. Mike and Jerry.
Yeah, I think it's like I'm still not convinced that we require a higher power.
Oh, that's very nice of you. You like a pocket version or a bigger one?
No, this is perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where's he going? He's going to get another one. It's in English. I think it's all in English.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, basically, you see, Islam, we have got many things which the media has completely blew it out of proportion.
Yeah.
So what do you learn about Islam on the media? It's not real Islam.
Yeah.
You see, Muslims are human beings at the end of the day. We want to live in peace with everyone. We want the goodness for you and for us at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was the reason for spending so much time with you, to understand that we as human beings should work together.
Yeah.
And then the most important thing is we should recognize that we have a purpose in this life.
Yeah.
Yes? And we didn't just come, we are not basically like animals. We basically are born, we eat, drink, grow up, and then die one day.
Yeah.
You see, we have a higher purpose. So at the end of the day, I don't know if you know much about Islam, but basically our understanding is that we'll die one day, and then there'll be a life after death. So take you for an atheist, for example, and if I were basically to wager with you, I know I'm against gambling, but let's say there was,
if you were.
there was no money involved here, but only a wager with you in terms of let's say there is no afterlife.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you die, you become dust. I think he's got one already.
I have one. Thank you.
You got one ready?
The other brother had one with him.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's say you die and you become dust, and that's the end of you, and that's the end of me. So you see, both of us, we die one day. And by the way, death is something, regardless of your belief, you have to accept it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Everyone dies, yes? Yeah. So that is one fact no one can deny.
Yeah.
So in the scenario I gave you, we both die and we become dust, and that's it, end of it. Now, let me give you another scenario. The other scenario is basically where you do have an afterlife. Yes? So you see, I have prepared for that afterlife.
Yeah.
If you were given that choice on that day by God to say, what have you done? What have you prepared?
Yeah.
And what would you say on that day to God? Let's say there was a God after that.
Yeah.
The other scenario, remember one scenario, nothing happens and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
The other scenario where my version is right and your version is wrong. So what would you say if you were faced with that situation where you would face God and then you were questioned?
Yeah. What have I done?
As to why have you rejected God?
Yeah. I would say that I didn't see. So if I were faced with that question and all of a sudden God is God is real and I'm there and I question, I would say, well, I didn't see enough reason to believe in God at the time. That's what I would have said. What
if basically there were reasons in your life where you had, for example, communicated with people and who reasoned with you as to the necessity and the rationality of God. For example, all this that we see around us, it didn't just appear one day by accident, or the universe that we see today. Where do you think that came from?
That's a very, very big question. I'm not sure.
I mean, certainly you don't. I mean, you being an intelligent man wouldn't assume it just appeared one day, is it?
No, I wouldn't. Well, first of all, I'm not sure like where the universe came from. I also, that said, I don't believe that because I don't know something, God created it.
Okay, so what is the other alternative?
It could be something that I just don't know. So
take the Big Bang, for example. You believe in the Big Bang?
I've
Big
read
Bang
about
theory?
it. Yeah, I've read about it. Yeah.
So you see, the Big Bang theory basically postulates that everything that we know, it basically started at one point, and from that point onwards, everything basically emerged from that point onwards. So the stars and the planets and everything we see around us, it had a beginning at a certain point, and from that point onwards, the universe began basically, and time began as well in a way. If you read some of the scientists, their theories. But you see, even the beginning of this has a cause. I don't know if you believe in the theory of cause and effect, that everything that begins to exist has a cause. So because the universe began to exist, it must also have a cause. Now, what would be the cause of something like the universe, for example? I mean, give me another alternative to God.
So there are some aspects that are probabilistic in nature. So if you think about like so there's like Newtonian science, and then there's quantum science. You know, the science of the very small. The science of the very small. Right now, it doesn't necessarily make sense to us that much. And the way that we express it in terms of probabilities. So in the idea of the very small, it's not always cause and effect.
That's because we don't know about it.
But we don't know exactly.
So it could be cause and effect.
It could be. Yeah, but we don't know. We mathematically haven't been able to see it's cause and effect, or it isn't.
Okay.
Now, whether or not it is or isn't, again, we don't know. But us not knowing does not necessarily mean that it's God.
So if I ask you, can something come or originate from nothing? Even in quantum mechanics.
No. Yes, things can pop in and out of existence, but only at the very, very small, small scale.
That's because we don't know.
Not at the scale that.
But I wouldn't say they pop out of nothingness. Or would you say that?
Right now, well,
is it magic?
We don't know where they pop. No, it could be just the universe, but we don't know.
Even the universe is much more.
Lots of things pop in and out, but at the very, very small scale.
Yeah, but do you think they come from nothing? Or there has to be something, like an energy field or something?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It's one of these things where...
Because if anyone tells me that something comes from nothing, I will really question their understanding of nothingness.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows at the small scale, but what I believe or don't believe, I don't think will dictate the truth. So me being very, very sure, or not even very, very sure, to be honest, me being open to the possibility that there isn't a God does not mean that there is or isn't a God.
Also, you are open to the possibility that there is a God?
Of course, if there's reason to believe, I just haven't been able.
Well, the reason is that all this came into existence from something, and it cannot be nothing.
Yeah, I think it would be very very silly to.
Would that be a rational reason that God exists? That all that we have as something in existence, known or unknown, cannot come from nothing. Would that be a good reason?
It could be a reason. I don't know if it would be the reason. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, whether it's a reason or the reason, at least it points to the fact that there has to be some supernatural being who brought this into existence. Because you see, for me to basically comprehend something coming into existence from nothing, yes, it's quite strange.
Yeah.
It's quite, basically, it's not logical even. It's incoherent and illogical.
So, I mean, it's one of these things where if you think about people 5,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, where they would see fire and they would say, fire, we believe in the God of fire because fire exists and it's incomprehensible the way it moves and everything. We could be like that right now with our current idea of physics and the universe. It could be stuff that we just don't understand, and we'll have an idea. And after knowing everything that we can know, maybe it'll be very clear that there is a God. And what I believe is I don't think we're there to clearly say that there is a God, but we're also if you take scientific reasoning, you can never say there absolutely isn't something either.
No, but you see, look, you cannot use scientific reasoning to know something that is of the spiritual world. You cannot, because science doesn't deal with that realm. It doesn't deal. That's basically outside its scope. So you cannot use scientific experiments to know whether there is God or not. Because science doesn't deal in spirituality, does it?
Well, science isn't just experiments, it's also logic. And you use logic to understand that God exists, yeah?
No, we can use logic. I'm not saying you cannot use logic, but I'm saying you cannot use science in order to basically prove or disprove the existence of God.
Yeah.
Because that is something that's not within the scope of science.
Yeah.
And even if science tells you that there is no such thing as God, then basically it is claiming to know something which is beyond its scope.
Yeah. So
it wasn't, but from a logical, philosophical understanding, you can deduce whether there is God or not, based on just what you see around you, for example. And you cannot say that anything, forget about the universe, for anything come into existence from nothing is completely illogical.
You can't, well...
Because then you're saying that nothing, to me, I don't know what is nothing to you, but to me nothing means the absence of everything. And everything includes energy. Everything includes...
The absence of anything.
No, the absence of everything.
The absence of anything.
Nothingness is the absence of, regardless of what you can imagine, what you can think, is the absence of all that.
No,
so
if you have half of that, that's still something.
Second?
If you have half of everything, you still have something.
Okay, if you want to call it anything, you can say absence of anything. That's fine, because then again we go to what is anything. That's the reason I said everything, because everything that you can imagine, everything you can think, none of that, whether it's one of those, everything, whether it's a small subset of that, or the entire everything, nothing is completely the opposite of that. You see what I mean? And that's why I'm saying that for me it is illogical and incoherent for anyone to claim that something comes into existence from nothing.
Okay.
Unless you redefine the word nothing, or redefine the term and the meaning of nothing. But then that nothing wouldn't be nothing anymore if there was something in it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the only way we can think of. But to me it would be illogical to say or to claim that God doesn't exist. Yes, because to me that something which created all this is God. The something that keeps all this in harmony, in control. Look, I mean, you don't see the planets colliding into each other or something like that. You see, we see some harmony within the universe, and this is something that's something quite evident to us.
But that's a good point you make. So then the idea, the definition of God, then, right? So there's the 2 points there. So the definition of God, I think, is important.
Yes.
And understanding is God some energy, or is it some omnipotent being, a singular being? I think is important clarification there. And then the second point about how things are in harmony. The planets crash together all the time, like all over the universe. Yeah.
Well, within our solar system, when was the last time a planet collided?
Not in our solar system, but if you talk about the broader universe, every day, hundreds of stars.
Yeah, but maybe that is a planet collision. Who knows?
True.
Maybe it is to give rise to another bigger planet, for example, or maybe a star might implode to give rise to a new star. It might be planned. Doesn't mean it's disharmony. It's basically, that's what I'm saying. I mean, look, what I'm saying is that, for example, your definition of God, that's a good question. In the Quran, Allah has defined himself as He's unlike anything. So everything that you can imagine, everything that you can think of, everything that you have seen or not seen, He's beyond that. So in terms of what God is, He's basically beyond our comprehension. But for us, that's not important as to who He is. It's not something that will be questioned about as to what God looks like or how or describe Him or something. That is beyond our ability, beyond our scope. However, there are certain glimpses of God in terms of what He is has been given in the Quran. For example, He's someone who's all powerful, almighty. Yes, He doesn't die. And God, by the way, is the uncaused cause.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's not in the Quran. That's this logical deduction. So, like I said, everything that begins to exist has a cause. And because God didn't begin to exist, He's eternal from the beginning, and basically He has no beginning, no end. And this is one of the definition of God as to who He is. And He basically has given us guidance. So He has created us and He has given us guidance. So He didn't just send us to earth without any guidance. And that is where the earlier discussion comes in, as to He's told us what is forbidden for us and what is permitted for us. Plus how to basically, how to deal with our daily lives. And this is where we come to the understanding of what God has a plan for us now and in the afterlife. And this is, you see, this is something that is clearly defined in the Sharia. Sharia is basically the rules and regulations and the teachings, with basically everything that encompasses the religion and the faith. It's within this, you can call it a framework in which it is. So from the time you wake up to the time you go back to sleep, and from the time you're born until the time you die, it's all basically something, how to lead your life in a very holistic manner is something that is taught to us within our faith, our religion.
So taking the idea of God, where you say, is uncaused cause. I think that's very beautiful, actually. There are similar ideas within Eastern religion as well, of God being this thing that was able to create.
Creator.
The creator,
that's one of the names of God.
And then the question is that, so there's the framework that you mentioned within the Quran, and then there are other frameworks in other religions. So I do see that there's some commonalities between almost all religions, like don't kill somebody, stuff like that.
I mean, you don't have to be religious for that, do you?
Right. So there's also some common sense there.
Of course there is. So there's something which is called a common morality, which encompasses all humanity, regardless of your